so today I'm going to be talking about my favorite love stories. Since today is Valentine's Day, I thought this would be the perfect video to upload. And I don't think I've ever done a video like this. I have done a few videos talking about like my favorite contemporary books, which typically have love stories in them, but I don't think I've ever done a video talking about my all-time favorite love stories in books. So all of these books aren't contemporary, some are fantasy, some are paranormal. I just wanted to highlight some of my favorite couples and books that heavily feature a love story. These aren't in any particular order because it would be way too hard to rank them, so I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right in. The first one I wanted to talk about is The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This book is actually about to be a movie, and I recently watched the trailer for it and it was so cute. I can't wait to watch the movie. I loved this book. It was one of my favorite books of 2017 and I loved the love story. The two characters are Natasha and Daniel, and Natasha just really believes in the science and the facts, and neither one of them are really dreamers or believe in fate, but when they cross paths, all of that kind of goes out the window. This is a pretty kind of like high stakes love story. Natasha and her family are going to be deported back to Jamaica in 12 hours, so Natasha and Daniel kind of go on a whirlwind of an adventure. I listened to this book on audiobook and absolutely adored it, and I'm just so excited to see how it transforms into the big screen. Next one is an oldie but a goodie. It is the Arcana Chronicles series by Kresley Cole. This is definitely your typical YA paranormal end of the world kind of dystopian but more apocalyptic romance story. I've talked about this series for years on my channel because I've been reading it for years. There are so many books in this series. I think there's 5 out now, and then the 6th and final one is coming out this year, I think. But this one's definitely not for everyone, but it is one of my favorites. The characters will always have a place in my heart. I love it so much, but it is a love triangle, so if love triangles aren't your thing, then probably not the series for you. However, I think the love triangle is done very well. I just think this is an amazing YA paranormal series, and it deals with tarot cards, and these tarot cards kind of come to life in the characters. So the first book I feel like is a little bit different than the rest of the series. So if you didn't really enjoy the first book, I would definitely recommend continuing on with the series, at least trying to read the second one. I feel like the tone and the vibe of the series kind of switches with the second book. So I think the first one's good too, but I think the second one is really where it hits its stride. So definitely keep trying with this if you haven't. But the two boys that are in the love triangle, I just love them both. I've literally been torn over both of them throughout the years that I've read this series. So I don't know, if you want to be emotionally damaged, maybe you should try this series. Next is kind of like a 180, the Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. This is an adult romance book, and I just love the couple that's in this book. I'm sure most of you have heard of this book or heard of the story because it was really, really popular last year. The two love interests are Stella and Michael. Stella has Asperger's, which I think is something that makes her character unique and lovable. I just really enjoyed seeing her kind of like break down her walls and get to know Michael, and him like break down his walls, and I just love seeing the dynamic between the two. I love the way that he loved her and accepted her for who she is. The setup of this book is really funny. So yeah, I would just highly recommend this book, but I will say it is a mature read. For a YA fantasy, The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. And this one's been out for a while too, so I'm sure most of you know about this duology as well. But it is a retelling of 1001 Nights, and our two main love interests are Shazi and Khalid. Shazi actually wants to kill Khalid because he is the prince that is killing all of these women every night, all of his brides. And one of those brides happened to be her best friend, and so she sets out on a mission to become his bride and to kill him. But things aren't as they seem, and the romance part of this book I feel like was a major plot line, and it stole my heart. I loved these characters so much. I love their struggles. I love how they learned how to bond and how Shazi learned so much about him. This duology just makes my heart cry, but in a really good way. Unfortunately, I don't have this series with me to show you the books, but it is a beautiful series, so I wish I did. But it's the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I know all of you know of this series. All of the love stories in this series are some of my top favorites. They are all OTPs of mine. I just love them so much. I love all these characters. I don't know what else to say about it. They are all so special and amazing and beautiful, and this is one of my favorite series of all time. Another one of my favorite series of all time that I don't have with me is the Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. Again, I know all of you know about this series, but the love story in this series is just, oh my gosh, and it's a love triangle, and I love love triangles whenever they're done very well, and I feel like this one is just superb. It's excellent. I love it. I was torn. I love both of the characters. It's just, I love the setting. I love that it's in the Shadowhunter world. I love the love, and I love how it transcends through time and how we see it in the other series, the spin-off series. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. For one of my all-time favorite contemporary books and new adult romances, Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. I've talked about this book a ton. I read it years ago, but it still sticks with me. A continuation of the story was also published on Wattpad by Colleen Hoover, and so I was reading that recently and kind of got back into their love story, and it was just so beautiful. This book does use a trope that I don't really like so much, and that's cheating, but I feel like it's resolved in a pretty good way, and I think it's handled well, or as well as it could be. That's the only part about this book that I wasn't super crazy about. However, I just ended up loving Sydney Ridge so much. I love this book also because of the incorporation of music. Music plays a really big part in it, so I just thought it was beautiful, and I love the soundtrack that goes along with this book. This next one is also kind of a throwback, but it's one of my favorite duologies and dystopian reads, and that is the Book of Ivy duology by Amy Engel. I loved the romance in this duology. It is slow, it is sweet, but it's one of those where the characters don't like each other at first, but then they grow to love each other. They're like forced into kind of a marriage situation, and but it's also like dystopian. I loved all the different elements that were combined in this story, and it's one of my favorites. So I recently just finished the Falling Kingdom series by Morgan Rose. I've been reading this series for years, but I just read the last book at the end of last year, and I loved it. It wrapped up so perfectly, and I love all of the couples that happened in this book or this series, but my favorite is Magnus and Cleo. They are just, they're my babies. I love Magnus and Cleo so much. They went through so much turmoil in this series, so much danger and near-death experiences. I feel like this is a trope that I love, you know, that characters that hate each other at first and then learn to love each other. Well, that's the case in this series. They're from like opposing kingdoms and families, and they don't like each other, but then it grows to more. But Magnus is always so super sassy with her. They make me laugh, but I just felt such a connection to them. So I have two books that are honorable mentions, and the only reason that they're honorable mentions and like not on the list is because I have not finished the series yet with both of these. I still have the last book in the series to finish, so I didn't really feel right like putting them on the official list when I haven't completed the series yet, but I know even after I complete the series they're still going to be on the list, so I want to talk about them anyway. The first one is The Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman. This series is set in the 1800s in England. I've said this before, but it's very similar to the Infernal Devices. It has a similar setting, and then we follow a girl who's kind of thrown into this secret society that kills demons that walk among the earth, and so it's kind of similar, but I feel like this series maybe focuses a little bit more on the historical fiction part of it and on like social propriety and that kind of thing. So if you really like historical fiction, I think this is an awesome series to read if you want like a mix of historical fiction and like supernatural fantasy, but also the love story in this series is so good. It's one of those romances where it just kind of goes back and forth. It's a slow burn. There's like some bickering, and it's not always like swoon worthy, but I found myself rooting for them through the first two books of the series, and I just can't wait to read the last one and see what happens to them. And lastly is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. I have yet to read Dreams of Gods and Monsters, and I read this book and the sequel so long ago, so I definitely need to refresh my memory and finish out the trilogy. I've been meaning to do it for years. I love Karu and Akiva so much. Their romance and their story just really hit me in the heartstrings. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I just love them. I love finding out more about them. I love seeing them fight side by side and just seeing them trying to create a better world. I love how whimsical and magical this series is and how their love story fits into all of it. I thought it was just so intricately woven. Alright, those are all of the books I had to mention with all of my favorite love stories. There's so many more. There's so many other characters and fictional couples that I adore, but those are just some that I could think of and that I feel like have just really stuck with me either over the years or have really stood out to me recently. So please share in the comments your favorite fictional love stories and your favorite books that have a romance at the center of them. I love romance so much and I would love to have some more recommendations. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you have a wonderful day regardless if you're spending it with friends or a significant other or by yourself. Just take some time to do something you love or to be with people that you love. So thank you so much for watching and I will see you soon.